Good afternoon, and thank you for coming and joining us today to learn about the top 10. Well, really, we got a bonus for you, the top 11 pricing mistakes you could be making and how you could avoid them. Um, we are going to be recording this webinar today, and this will be sent out in an email afterwards. So if you'd like to share that with others and or rewatch it, you will have that option to do so. Um, as I am going to have Mark here. Mark Rockwell is with us today as the presenter, and I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to him so he can go ahead and give you all of these wonderful tips. Thank you, Mark. Take it away.
Thanks, Jen. I am Mark Rockwell. I am an architect of RPM and an owner of Rockton Software. I'd like to share with you today some mistakes that you could be doing with pricing and what you can do about it. We've had quite a litany of experiences with different customers and things that we've seen, so we'd like to share some of this knowledge with you. First big culprit is overuse of Excel. Oh, we need to ditch Excel. Now, Excel has its places and we actually integrate it with our product, but the overuse of Excel, when you use it as your pricing engine, is a huge problem. A lot of companies use an Excel spreadsheet. It's got a lot of complex formulas in it or whatever, and there's that one guy in the organization who knows how it works. And if that one guy needs to go on vacation, you're all stuck. Or if that guy gets hit by a Mack truck or leaves the company, you just are really, really stuck. So having that knowledge in just one person's head is not a really good place or to maintain your core pricing information. Additionally, these Excel spreadsheets get stored either on a shared drive or whatever, but you don't have any security around that. So if that spreadsheet gets out and gets shared with somebody else, that can really be an issue. Plus, where's the spreadsheet kept? Oh, that guy went on vacation and now we got to go find the spreadsheet. Where is it? So that can be a problem. We've also seen with these Excel spreadsheets that salespeople open them up and they actually copy and paste the values of pricing right out of the spreadsheet and into their ERP system and into their accounting system. It's just really shocking. So when you are copying and pasting, it's just fraught with error as well. And then finally, you don't have any auditing or history. So if you need to update your pricing, you typically are updating this one Excel spreadsheet, and then you've lost the history or whatever your pricing used to be by doing that. And you don't have the ability to see what you had in the past. And now, of course, you can make copies and copies and copies of your Excel spreadsheets, but then you have to go dig out the right spreadsheet for the right time. So lots of problems with Excel, and the over reliance on that, especially for the complex formulas in Excel, is a real problem. Next up is about cost plus. You should be using cost plus pricing, and if you're not, you may be losing margin or just slowly you're running you're running into your profits and cutting away at them. You need consistent margins on the products that you sell, and so if the prices are fluctuating with what you buy them at, your price that you sell them at should fluctuate as well as the costs go up. So if you have just a flat where it's not tied, where your pricing is not tied to your cost, as the cost goes up, you may forget to update that selling price, and that just erodes your margin slower and slower, and that can really eat into your profits. Loss leaders can be a really helpful tool to help you drive more business. And so pricing certain things at a loss or at a very low price or under market can be very, very effective. When I was in high school, I used to work at Safeway, and at the end caps there was always some type of cracker or some type of food that was on sale, and those are loss leaders because the grocery stores really know that those loss leaders are helpful in getting people in the door. They find them, but then they go down the aisles and they buy more things. And so you can target specific items that you have as a loss leader in order to gain more customers or gain more traction with people coming to you to buy things. And then you can make up that margin on other items that you sell at a higher margin, of course. So the use of loss leaders can be a very effective tool in helping drive overall your profitability. Take a look at what your competition is doing. If you have price lists of your competitors, if you know what they're selling them for, then it can be very helpful to make sure that you are selling only slightly above it or a certain percentage of it, or if you want to be in the market to where you're selling under that, having that benchmark and having a pricing algorithm that can make sure that you're priced competitively against your competitor's price can be a really effective tool. So if you have that research and that ability to collect your competition's pricing, you can now set up rules about how are we going to set our pricing based on their pricing. Now, of course, you don't want to oversell to where you're losing margin, so you want to have thresholds such as don't sell over what the competitor is, but don't sell under a certain margin for us. And you can mix and match rules like that. But if you take a look at what your competition is doing, you can certainly utilize that for how to drive your own pricing. Every system that we run into has special exceptions, and special exceptions are just a norm of pricing. If you have too many, it can be very, very overwhelming. And what we try to do when we engage with customers is we try to streamline what those special exceptions are, or how many they have, and what they're how they work and how they operate. Now, if you have special exceptions, you should have them well defined, and should have them well defined in a way that everybody knows about them, so there's clarity. Because there's a lot of special exceptions where you've got a rogue salesperson out there who's like, oh yeah, I've given Bob over here a handshake deal and I know about it, don't worry about it. Well, if that's not documented, that can be a real problem. So you want to be sure that your special exceptions are documented and that they're applied in a straightforward way through a very standardized process. So limit them, but because you have them, you need to track them systematically. Also, what I see a lot with special exceptions is you might have 10,000 items in your inventory, and there's just one item for one person that you want to price differently, and you often have to copy that whole entire list of 10,000 items over and then change the price on one thing, and that's just silly. That's like 10,000 extra records you don't need. So with exceptions, you should be able to just pinpoint just the one item for the one customer that has a different price, handle that exception as an exception to the rule, and then apply the rest of the rules. That way you're only managing just small sets of data, which is exactly the exception that you're applying. Price grouping is incredibly important, and what this means is grouping a bunch of things, the price by category, by style, your different items and whatnot. We had a marijuana vendor actually that had 20 different SKUs for pretty much every item. They sold the same item under different names and different packaging, but it was essentially the same, but each item number was unique. However, they all belonged to a category group. And instead of pricing all 20 of those individual items, we were able to price just the single group so that all 20 of those items got that one price. And that way you only have to manage one price versus 20 prices. And that could be very dramatic throughout. If you have a whole bunch of, if you've got thousands or tens of thousands of items in your inventory, that can be very, very powerful. There's different ways to price discounts by groups, such as your gold, silver, or bronze customers. You might want to put different discounts off list price for them. So by grouping your customers, grouping your items into sets, and then applying rules to those groups of items or customers can be very, very powerful. If you don't group, then you're just kind of stuck on this one-off thing. So think about how you can group things together and price them together so that you have consistency and patterns. The other advantage to grouping is, for instance, if you say that I've got a 10% special going off of items that are in category blue, then when you add a new item to your inventory that has category blue, it automatically applies to that. So you don't have to go, when you add an item, you don't have to go set up another rule that includes that item. If they're grouped, you just assign it to that group, and then it automatically gets that group's types of pricing functionality. I'm a huge fan of relational pricing plateaus. So a plateau is something like list price or MSRP. Another plateau is like landed cost. So if you take something like landed cost, you might have one set of items where there is no shipping or whatever, and so the cost is just what the cost is, and another set of items where the landed cost needs to be calculated and we need to mark everything up by, say, 5% to cover the overhead of the shipping that came in. Well, you can have some items that do not have that shipping and some that do, that get to your kind of landed cost plateau. Now, if you take it from your cost and you go to a list price from there, oftentimes to get to list price, you're adding, say, 40% margin on this group of items and 30% margin on that group of items. Well, if you go from the plateau of landed cost, then to get from landed cost to the retail price, you can just go from the plateau, so you don't have to redo the landed cost levels and repeat them when you're trying to get to the retail price. So basically setting a plateau of where you calculate a bunch of prices in a complex way, and then from that point forward, moving up to the next level. Once you get to retail cost, then you can get the discounts off of that, such as a customer discount. Well, it basically allows you to create stopping points in your pricing model so that you can kind of group things together and rely on, hey, I know what the retail selling price is calculated in a lot of complex ways, but now that I have that, I can now start applying some discounts in a way that without having to worry about all of those other complex things that got me to the retail price. So think about how you can be pricing in a plateau type relationship. This one drives me crazy, and I see it often, and that is that people do markups based on dollars, and it makes sense, but it's a very short-term visibility. So if you have something that costs you $100 and you do a markup of that of a dollar versus a 1% markup, then when that cost goes up to say $200, that dollar markup is no longer the same value as when it should be $2. So if you are using percentages against when your costs change or whatever, if you want to go retail price less discounts, it's very helpful to use percentages, because once you set up the percentages, as your costs change over time, you never have to go back and update the rules. But if you have absolute value amounts, so specific dollar amounts that you add or subtract for a markup or a discount, then as the costs go up and the prices change over time, you have to go back and rethink about those absolute values and put them more in line with where things are going. And prices always go up. Inflation happens over time. That just is a natural thing. And so if you think in percentages, you can do a lot better with having a maintainable system that you don't have to keep going and updating and thinking about over time. Psychological pricing works. And I'm a huge fan of Costco. When you go into Costco, pretty much everything ends in 99 cents. Around the dollar, there's some low price things that end in like 49 cents, but 9 is always the last number. And there's just something special about buying something for $3.99 versus an even $4. So having a pricing engine that can round for you to the nearest 99 cents or round to the nearest nickel or whatever rule you want to create, it's very helpful to take advantage of psychological pricing. Costco also has this unique thing where if they discontinue an item, they mark it down quite a bit, but they also change the price to end in 77 cents. And I'm not sure why they do that, but if you're a frequent fan of Costco like I am, if you ever see something that ends in 77 cents in the price, you can know that if you want it, grab it, because they're clearing it out and it won't be around for very long. So use psychological pricing, round to the nearest 99 or end in 9 cents or whatever it is that is appropriate for your dollar value. And that can be very effective in helping uh, drive people to buying a product. If you don't set minimums, you can over discount yourself. So let's suppose that you have items that you're using a cost plus model and you get to a retail price, and then you have a rule that says I've got my customers that get 5, 10, 15% off based if they're gold, silver, bronze level, and I've got some items that are on sale for 15% off, and I'm running an extra special this week for some other reason promotional that's driving it. It adds another discount. Well, if you apply all three of those discounts, you might be selling for less than the cost even. And so setting a minimum price threshold can be very helpful so that you don't over discount, because it's incredibly powerful to have multiple discounts, and we support multiple discounts, whereas most ERP systems don't. Um, but if you over discount or apply too many, you might go past this minimum to where you're actually losing money. So having the ability to set a minimum so that you can always apply against the minimum is very helpful. And what I recommend is to set the minimum just based on cost, like cost plus 30% is could be your minimum, and then your retail price might be cost plus 50, and then if you discount that retail price too much, you can always compare it against that lower plateau of what your minimum should be, and that way you can make sure that you're protecting your margin. And then finally, it's about ego. I see ego in a couple different ways. So there are people that we run across where they are that guy that runs the Excel spreadsheet, that loves their Excel spreadsheet. They're very proud of it, and it's color coded and got all kinds of fancy tabs and all kinds of amazing Excel wizardry of formulas and lookups and things. And they make it complicated for like job security. I don't really know why. And they're very proud of how complicated it is. Well, that ego is not a good thing, and so that is a management issue that I encourage you to overcome, because it should not be in one person's head. It should not be, your formula should not be in an Excel spreadsheet. That's one issue. The second issue is with salespeople. And when we engage with implementations of Rockton pricing management, we find that if you have a large sales staff, like 20 people or so, usually enough things are changing in your business that you might ruffle some feathers with those who've been around a long time. There are quite a few salespeople who know the industry inside and out, and they offer special handshake deals with their favorite customers. You know, they've been here for 20 years. They know the product SKUs inside and out. They know the market. They know, even the weather can impact things. It's amazing what they know. And so they just on the fly go ahead and enter a value of whatever they want to sell things at. Well, the problems with a salesperson just entering a value for whatever they want to sell things at is you don't have any trackability to that. So um, we want to kind of tie down the system to where the price that is calculated is within the realms of what we want it to be. And what we recommend is that is that you can still empower your salespeople to perhaps add an additional discount or whatever. And so in the ERP system, you might add an extra column that says additional discount or markup if they want to be. And that way, the price still calculates according to the engine and according to all your rules. And that ego-driven salesperson can still discount it if they want an additional amount. But the advantage to that is that if you have a field that tracks that additional discount that salesperson is doing, you have the price logged and recorded for all of eternity to report on about what it should have sold at and what it actually sold at and what that discount was. Then you can start tracking and reporting, like, how are our salespeople discounting things? How much are they giving away? And make some analysis about whether that's a good thing or not. So be very wary of egos and find ways to curb them. So Rockton pricing management handles, of course, all of these things. With RPM, you can get the right price for the right person at the right time. We have all kinds of bells and whistles and things for pricing, from volume discounts to tracking historical sales. You can do volume discounts, such as if you buy a bunch of green items, and if you buy, let's say, more than 100 units of the green items, then you get an additional 10% off. Date-driven pricing, there's quite a few accounting systems that do not do date-driven pricing or require you to copy the entire sheet over. We don't. There are unlimited discounts, as I mentioned before, that pretty much every ERP system out there allows one and only one discount. We allow unlimited, and you can track every single discount that you do, along with every other piece of information, to the general ledger account if you want to. We do rebate processing, whether you pay a customer or a vendor or collect money from a customer or vendor based on the sales volumes of stuff. We've got that as well. And RPM is a complete commission engine with all kinds of complex rules and calculations that apply as well. We can track commissions. Commissions, of course, don't change the sales price, but you can track them to a general ledger so that you can pay them out. We, of course, handle royalties and tariffs that are in the news as of late. The ability to pass along your tariffs to your customers and change the sales price based on the tariffs with date-driven simplicity, so that you can turn them on and off based on how quickly the tariffs are being turned on or off. We also offer cataloging, the ability to generate lists that you send out to your customers as well. We can work with any ERP system that's out there, and would love to have a conversation about how it can work for you. Brief overview about how RPM works is over on the left-hand side. You have an input that usually comes from your accounting system. It's the item and the customer, the currency and the date, some basic information, and then RPM does a bunch of calculations based on the rules that we set up. and it outputs a price, and you expect it to output a price. But in addition to the price, we also pass back to the accounting system all these things called price adjustments, which includes your royalties, your rebates, commissions, all your discounts, different margins, different pieces of information that you want to track. So we pass that back and can post that information to the general ledger if need be. Doesn't have to, but it can. And so you get a rich amount of information back when you're pricing something so that you can slice and dice and report on all of the information that's changing based on the price that you have in your system. Well, that about wraps up for today. And if you would like to reach out to us, here's some contact information. Back to you, Jen.
Oh, no, thank you, Mark. Appreciate that overview and suggestions on how to avoid some of those things that most of us see when we come to pricing items. As a reminder, we will be sending this recording out in an email, so look for that in your inbox. And again, if you have any questions, as Mark said, we'd like to set up a customized demo for you and or address those specific questions. The information on how and where to reach us is right there on the screen. And yeah, with that, we're going to go ahead and give you some time back in your day. Thank you again for spending a little bit of time with us today. I think that is it. Thank you.